Dad, stop it already. The girl's trembling voice reached my ears. Hello? Oh, can I get a lunchbox? It's just me, my mom, and me. Please. Hurry up. I froze as the girl's voice frantically told me the address in a trembling voice. Don't you dare raise your hands to women and children. You piece of trash. My name is Sagawa Yuto, 34 years old. I now live as the underboss. When I walk down the shopping street, the path opens up naturally. Everyone who sees my face turns silent and looks away, as if they've seen something they shouldn't touch. I ended up in this position after making that decision that day. The reason I ended up on this path, it was because of my rotten father. He put on a good face in front of others, but when he got home, he would beat my mother, treat her like slaves, and look down on me and my sister as if they were bugs. Why would my mother be with a man like this? I wished we could break up sooner, so I told my mother many times. But she always shook her head with a wry smile. It's for living expenses and tuition. That's all. If we break up, we won't be able to survive. All I can do now is endure it. My mother's love and determination to sacrifice herself to protect our lives. As a middle school student, I couldn't understand any of this. I just rebelled against my father, got irritated by my mother who just endured everything, and was angry at myself for not being able to do anything, all the while running away from the shitty reality. I didn't go to class and just wandered around playing every day. After being persuaded by my mother and sister, I reluctantly went on to high school, but of course it was a technical high school with a low average score. There were a lot of people there who were just like me. Hanging out with them, I became more and more eccentric. I just didn't want to be like my damn father. I think that was the only thing holding me back. I don't have a strong sense of justice or anything, but when I saw someone being treated unfairly, I just couldn't keep quiet. That day was no different. As I was walking aimlessly through town, several men came running towards me. They kept running forward, bumping into people around them without even apologizing. They even casually bumped into mothers with children and elderly people. They were in the way. Stop walking so slowly. When I saw a young man yelling at an old woman who had fallen over after being pushed, I said, "Hey, don't mess with me." It's your fault that you fell, so apologize. I glared at him and said, "Now, hold your chest." The man grabbed me by the collar and grinned in a menacing manner. I could see some kind of pattern etched into his skin through the gap in his shirt sleeve. But his arms were surprisingly thin. I punched him as hard as I could, hitting him in the face as he fell. The man's face turned into a cloud the moment I saw him. That incident was the beginning of everything. I later learned that he was a low-ranking member of a gang in a neighboring town, and had apparently run away with the gang's money. The young boss at the time showed up after hearing that information. It was the current boss. When the underboss saw me, who was clearly not afraid to stand up to men of that line of work, he said, "You're young, but you're good with the opposite sex. You have a promising future. Why don't you come work for us?" Quote. With those words, my life began to change dramatically. But strangely, I didn't regret it. Rather, I felt like I could finally breathe. I didn't want to sit down and study again, saying that there was no future for me if I continued to be a delinquent. So I decided to live my life this way. I decided to live my life my own way. That's what I thought. I went straight to the office and the underboss listened to my story. "I see.
Leave it to me. I'll give you enough money to make sure your mother and sister don't have any trouble."
Really? Yes. So you're going to cut ties with that damn father. After hearing my story, the boss immediately prepared more money than I needed. Of course, my mother and sister were surprised and opposed it when they learned the situation. But I had already made up my mind. I will never cause them any trouble. Please accept this money and start a new life. With those words, I left the money behind, almost forcibly, and left the house. And so I quit high school, and with the resolve never to return home again, I moved into the gang and set out on the real path. I prayed that my mother and sister would live happily ever after. A few years from now, I would become the underboss. Good work, big brother. The young man who opened the car door straightened his back and bowed to me. I only nodded my head in return. That's what it means to have a relationship where you don't have to say a word. Among them, Ryohei, who was 5 years younger than me, had absolute trust in me. He was a cute guy who always followed behind me with a look on his face that said whatever his big brother said was always right. "Oh, we're not a bento shop." "Yeah. No, that's why we don't sell fried chicken bento. Are you listening, young lady?" One day, Ryohei, looking troubled, was talking patiently to the other person on the phone at the office, his shoulders heaving. "I'm going to make another mistake. I might as well put it on the sign. We do both yakuza and bento." The two soldiers hold their hands and look at me in a low voice, joking. It's been happening a lot lately. No mistake. Fire, I'll talk. I take the tree from the two soldiers and put it to my ear. Then, for some reason, a woman's scream and a loud noise can be heard from the other side of the tree. And then, "Dad, stop it already." The trembling voice of a girl jumps into my ear. "Hello. Oh, can I have a lunchbox? Fried chicken. It's just Dad, Mom, and me. Please. Hurry up." I freeze as the girl's voice desperately tells me the address in a trembling voice. The pain and fear hidden behind the voice is painfully palpable. It's not an order for a lunchbox. It's a cry for help, as if her life is about to break. Roger that. 3 servings of fried chicken. I'll be right there. I'll be there in 5 minutes, so can you wait? I hang up the phone and give the 2 soldiers a look. Let's go. The apartment is right over there. Huh. Ryohei followed me in a panic as I ran off, not knowing what was going on.
Brother.
How wide-eyed is Karage? Are you stupid? It's a girl's SOS. Let's go help her. Saying that, I ran out of the office and ran into an old apartment building just around the corner. My body moved on its own before I could think. I didn't need a reason. The moment I heard that voice, I couldn't stop. A warm feeling slowly rose in my chest as I ran up the rusty stairs, skipping 2 steps at a time. Those moments when I silently watched my mother's shivering back as a child. The regret of wanting to help but not being able to do anything. The memory of that night is still burned into my brain. It said 202, right? Okay. This is it. Without even having time to catch my breath, I stood in front of the door, and from inside I could hear a man yelling and the dull sound of something hitting something. I didn't even knock, but I turned the doorknob with all my might, but it was locked and I couldn't open it. Get out! After confirming that both soldiers hurriedly moved out of the way, I kicked the door without hesitation. With a loud bang, the door of Jupiter opened distortingly. Inside, a large man grabbed a girl behind his back and a woman who looked like her mother by the hair, pushing her against the wall and yelling with bulging eyes.
Who are you?
Before the man could finish his sentence, my fist slammed into his face. With a dull thud, he fell to the floor. Don't raise your hands against women and children, you scum. I pinned the man's arm behind his back and stomped on it with my foot. Are you okay? I said this and turned my attention to the girl. Her small body was still trembling, but there was definitely light returning to her eyes. Thank you, bento shop owner. I nodded kindly at those words. Can you stand up? Let's get out of here anyway. I called out to the woman sitting next to the girl. Yes. But you guys came here after receiving the SOS from this girl. There's nothing suspicious about it. Don't worry. The woman stared at me with frightened eyes, but after a few seconds of silence, she surrendered herself to my arms with no strength. I have to get my school bag. Hey, hey! As I was about to leave the house, the girl suddenly remembered something and ran back inside. Then she returned to the entrance with her school bag still clutched in her small arms. There's one thing I absolutely can't leave behind. I see. Okay, let's go. I put my hand on the girl's shoulder and looked at the woman walking next to her. Her eyes were still frightened, but she was still taking one step forward.
Hey, wait up, you guys. Hey.
Man's voice echoed from behind me. He was lying on the floor, his face twisted in frustration, and he glared at me while clutching his aching stomach. But he didn't seem to have the strength to stand up anymore. Both soldiers looked down at the man and said coldly, "I was going to beat you up so badly that you'd never be able to stand again. Your big brother went easy on you. You should be grateful, quote." And we left the house, holding the girl's hand and supporting the woman. "Thank you so much for helping me," the woman muttered softly while clinging to my arm. Her breathing was still shallow. Her body was covered in blue and scratches. "It's okay if you calm down. If you get hurt, can you tell me what happened?" The woman looked at me for a moment, as if she was confused. Her gaze was a mixture of caution and hesitation, but she immediately nodded slightly. "Yes. My name is Ichino's Rina. My husband's name is Yoshi. This child is Ayaka, 7 years old." Her husband was kind when they first got married, but after a while he became violent, and Rina held her trembling hands tightly in her lap and continued speaking with her eyes downcast. It was around that time that she found out she was pregnant with Ayaka. When she was born, her husband was happy and doted on her, but recently he has started hitting Ayaka too. Ayaka was just hurting me, so she yelled at him not to talk back to her. Rina tried desperately to hold back her tears as she tried to speak with a trembling voice. "Don't do that to Mom, Dad." That's probably what she yelled. I thought I had to do something about it, so I went to the police. But they didn't take me seriously. They just gave me a perfunctory warning, saying that marital arguments happen in every household. My husband is a loving person outside and has a good reputation at work. That's why no one believed my story. TCH, the police are useless. But I'm sure that Ayaka called to help Rina. Rina looked up at my words. When I fell to the floor after being hit by my husband, Ayaka went to the kitchen phone. My husband was yelling as usual, saying that he was hungry and wanted to order a lunchbox. Ayaka, who had ordered from him before, called me out of concern. So Ayaka ordered a lunchbox. But she had called my house by mistake. Lately, a lot of people have been calling my house by mistake, thinking it was a lunchbox. When I looked it up, I found that the phone number of a new lunchbox shop that had opened in the neighborhood was very similar to ours. I was lucky. I'm glad you called my place. I felt like Ayaka was desperately asking for help while pretending to order a lunchbox over the tree. Wasn't your brother a lunchbox shop? Then how about fried chicken? The baby, who had been listening to our conversation, looked at me with wide eyes. Sorry. You guys aren't a lunchbox shop. Oh, I'm hungry. A cute gurgling sound echoed from Ayaka's stomach. Oh no, it's too early. Now that you mention it, I haven't eaten anything since this morning. I'm sorry. My heart tightened at the look on Reina's face as she apologetically stroked the baby's head. Okay, you can come to my place. Look, it's right over there. I'm a person who has strayed from the path of humanity. It's not my style to help people. But I didn't hesitate at that time. The only safe place I could think of was this office. Reina was taken aback by the strange atmosphere that seemed so strange from her appearance, but after a moment of silence, she seemed to have made up her mind and slowly stepped inside, grasping Ayaka's hand. When she explained the situation to the boss, he looked surprised, but surprisingly, that was like you. Do whatever you want, he said, readily giving her permission. Hello. At first, the gang members were taken aback by the baby's innocent smile and affectionate expressions, but gradually they started to enjoy playing with her, saying things like, "Oh, how cute Na-chan is." Or, "Let's play some scrunch." And so a few weeks passed. All the gang members worked together to make sure that Reina, who had left home as a tree, could live comfortably and with peace of mind. For a while, Reina couldn't hide her nervousness, and would shrug her shoulders whenever she made eye contact with someone, but as time passed, she gradually began to smile. As for Ayaka, she started going to a nearby elementary school. She put on her school bag and said, "I'm leaving," at the gang's entrance. The way she waved her hand was just like any other ordinary child. I was surprised that my heart could be so warmed as I watched her back go. At night, we all gathered for dinner, and sometimes Ayaka and I would play a serious game of Karekran, and the two of us would burst out laughing. When Reina saw us like that, she would say, "You're just like a real mother and daughter," and she would secretly wipe away her tears and smile. How loving those days were. I strongly wish that days like these could continue. But the happier times are the more fragile they are. Reina's ex-husband had started to make his move. He must have hired a detective. Someone was sitting in the car, watching her coming and going from the office. Ryohei was the first to notice the change. "Your sister and the child are being targeted." He told me that with a serious face, and I finally made up my mind. A few days later, the office received a phone call. Reina, who was nearby, answered it. I noticed that her hands were starting to shake slightly while she was on the phone. Something inside me almost snapped at that moment, demanding that my husband be returned to me and Ayaka, but the moment I saw Reina's trembling hands, my anger was overcome by the desire to protect her. I gently placed my hand on Reina's shoulder. I'll take legal action. I'll do something about it. But I'm a member of the gang. I can't talk to the police directly. That's why I decided to leave the gang. I stood before the boss, bowed my head, and told him everything. Please let me leave. I want to protect what the Yakuza can't protect. After listening to my words in silence, the boss said just one word. I see. Then don't come back. You can do it. That day, I officially left the gang. I left everything I had as a Yakuza behind. I felt bad for repaying a favor with ingratitude, but I was so grateful to the boss for forgiving me. After that, I asked a lawyer introduced to me by Reina's relatives, and consulted the police. With the diary, medical records, and call records from her ex-husband, she filed a restraining order with the family court, and the order was successfully granted. And then, finally, the main issue of divorce came. Her ex-husband was stubborn, but in the end, the evidence of domestic violence was all there, and Reina's application was fully accepted. Discussion didn't resolve the issue, and in the end, the divorce was finalized by the family court. I had prepared myself for my past as a former Yakuza to get in the way, but fortunately, the procedures went smoothly, as I'm just an ordinary person now. If I had used my secret power, it might have been over quickly. But that would have been meaningless. I told Ri-san the same thing. I wanted Ayaka to be able to live with her head held high in the future. I didn't want to cast even the slightest shadow over her world. The days that followed were hectic. I worked hard at my job as a caregiver. At first, everything was a trial and error. Caring for the elderly was completely different. But little by little, I began to feel the reality of living as a member of society. Rina started working part-time, and Ayaka grew healthier and healthier. One day, while we were having dinner as usual, I went to Rina. I've always thought this. I want to protect Rina and Ayaka's smiles forever. So will you marry me? Tina was dumbfounded for a moment, but then nodded with tears in her eyes. Yes. I've always loved you, San, who is reliable and kind. Ayaka-chan jumped for joy when she asked, "Are you going to marry Yu-san's mom?" Then will you be my dad? Quote. The small apartment where the three of us started living is now my treasure. Every day since then has been busy but happy. Then one day, I contacted my mother and sister, whom I hadn't seen for a long time. It took courage to say it, but Rina and Ayaka's presence gave me the push I needed. I'm home. When I said that, my mother hugged me with tears in her eyes. My sister smiled and said, "Welcome home." She patted my back and said, "You look so kind." I have no intention of living in hiding anymore. I will live proudly and proudly, with my head held high. With Rina and Ayaka, and the new family that will be born in the future. In the past, dreams were just a faint thought. But now I can say with pride that our future is definitely bright. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.